You know, growing up, I think I was pretty lucky to have the experiences or have the upbringing that I did have. We weren't rich by any means. We didn't have a lot of material possessions. We didn't have a lot of money. Actually, we didn't have a lot of what people would say is riches. But what we were rich in was a lot of our experiences, especially when it comes to the culture that I got to grow up around. And this is something that I think, sorry, this is something that I think later on down the track, it's one of those things where you do take a rest and you start to think about all the things that you're extremely lucky for. So the first one that I am extremely lucky for is the fact that I just woke up. I didn't really have to do much for that to happen, but I was given life. But another thing is with my upbringing, I was pretty lucky, and I always talk about privilege. And a lot of people, when they think about privilege, the first thing they think about is how much wealth did that person have when they were growing up? How much inherited wealth that allows them to have experiences that are kind of paid for, I guess. But for me, obviously we didn't have that. We kind of grew up in the negatives in terms financially. But one of the luckiest things I had was the fact that my dad, well, actually, we grew up on a marae, so we got to spend a lot of my youthful years, experiencing what happens on a marae. So for those of you international listeners who don't know what a marae is, or even you domestic listeners who just aren't quite up to speed with Māori culture, so firstly, Māori are the indigenous people of Aotearoa. So Aotearoa is also now known as New Zealand, which is the country that I currently am sitting in. And what happens is there's a marae, and a marae is an ancestral, it's a building that's built on ancestral lands. So that ancestral lands kind of belongs to a tribe or an iwi. And then this building that they have there is called a marae, and what they do, that's a place where a lot of people of that area congregate, and this is where places or iwi or people from other iwi would come, and this is where they could come to maybe have a rest if they needed to, if they could discuss a lot of matters that kind of have to do with the iwi as well. There's the marae. But the cool thing about the marae is not only is it a space, but it's also a place to practice a lot of our protocol and culture within that space. So it creates that safe space. And because obviously if we think about time and how time is extremely dynamic, and it kind of reminds us that we have to reinterpret what the use of a marae is. So they're always going to have their basic protocols. They're always going to have their basic themes, I guess, for what we do on that marae. But with the ever-changing context around it, we kind of have to reimagine and reinterpret and also rediscover, renegotiate what it is that happens in that space. But anyway, we're moving along. What I'm trying to say here is I was very, very lucky without even putting my hand up, without even trying to do things that was going to help me in terms of that fact. I actually just got given that experience by being alive. So, because this was my dad's place of work, we spent a lot of the time, maybe that if we didn't go to school because we were sick or something, we had to go to the marae with him, or school holidays. A lot of our times were spent on the marae as well. And so my dad was a marae taurima, and on that, he had to run a lot of the pōhiri, and a lot of the different groups that would come through. He had to organize a lot of them. So we spent a lot of our time there. That's what I'm trying to say. So when it comes to different custom or different protocols on different marae, I can actually appreciate it for the different. I think because I was so exposed to it when I was younger, I'm over that fearful stage of like, oh no, what happens, because I've been in it so much. But now I get to really appreciate all of the smaller details that different marae kind of put into how they go about their customs. And another thing that comes off this, and the reason why this all kind of spurred from something, is because I was thinking about the other day my first kiss. And my first kiss, I'm pretty sure, was on a marae, but it's not what you're thinking. So what we do when we go around, so you kind of do like a little hareru, or you go around and you greet yourself to the other people, or maybe like the front row of each group will go around and you'll hongi each other. So a hongi is where you touch noses. So you might have seen that before, but sometimes some people like to touch nose, and if it's maybe like a male-female or female-female, they will kiss the cheek as well. Now, there's no written rule about how you actually go about this. So some people will do the hongi, then the kiss. Some people will go straight for the kiss. Some people only hongi. And it's quite awkward sometimes because you just kind of have to feel it out. So if you're like the third person in the line, you can start to see what's happening and like, oh yeah, okay, that's a hongi kisser. This is a kisser. Okay, but I've been at the front of the line a couple of times and I've never known, I just kind of had to guess and try to feel it out. So what happened with this one, you can obviously understand. I went in for the hongi. They went in for the kiss. We kind of saw that our trajectories were going off on some sort of tangent. And then our lips touched. So yeah, we kissed on the lips. I was quite young, and that was probably my first kiss. So yeah, anyway, we are 5 minutes in, and as much as that had to do with a lot of stuff, it also had a lot to do with nothing. But I think the key things to take away from that is that I have just been doing a lot of practice. I think I've been going back to trying to think because, I'm going to be honest with you, team. I have been probably the worst I've been in a very, very long time. But weirdly, I'm not okay in my head. But I've got this weird confidence that everything's going to be fine. And I don't know where that's coming from, but then I also do know where that's coming from. And I think that the thing for me is that I've acknowledged it quite early. Usually I get to a point where I'm already hurting, where I'm like, oh, I think I need to do something about this. So yeah, that's been really, really cool. Is that not really, really cool, but I've been starting to notice things a lot quicker. And I've also been able to voice it a lot faster, rather than trying to push through a lot of things. And I think it definitely helps not being a student anymore. And this is going to get into a lot of what we speak about today. But maybe even the job that I have, a lot of what we're trying to focus on is a lot of professional development around keeping yourself safe, because we know that we're going to have a very, very long and arduous career. And if we're burning ourselves out all the time, then basically we're going to be really, really good workers for a short amount of time and then just hate the rest of it. And it's going to be a hard life. And the thing is, right now, I'm pretty lucky. I have a very, very good job, it pays well, and I'm just extremely fortunate to be where I am, and I have access to a lot of the brightest brains around the room. But the thing is, if I keep running myself into the ground, or if I keep living a lifestyle that I had lived while I was a student, I'm definitely going to start resenting my job first, and I'll start resenting myself for putting myself in that job, and then it's kind of this vicious cycle into me just disliking myself, which we all know that's kind of just me on any day anyway. So if I'm starting to add fire to me not liking myself, then that's kind of, that's not going to be the buzz at all. So I think where I want to go with today is just thinking about proper rest and using that rest to be able to be extremely, grateful for everything that we do have. Now, I know when I first started doing solo episodes, my first episode was called How Gratitude Saved My Life. And that was absolutely true. At the time, I was definitely in the feels a lot in that episode, but it seemed to be the thing that resonated with a lot of people. And I know I did a series where I was looking at a whole bunch of different things to help us live happier, healthier lives. But sometimes I think when we get caught up in trying to push everything forward, we do kind of, we have to bring ourselves back to the basics, and we have to bring ourselves back to see whether we have a strong foundation or not before we go forward. So I've realized that basically the life that I live it's kind of one of those things. I think even if you're a student, if you're a worker, if you're some sort of person who's in a work environment where you're looking at promotion, or where people look at your outputs as kind of your value, we live in a world where people who take rest, or people who aren't willing to give their entire lives to the work that they do, like, we automatically just assume that they're slackers. So I think about when I was a first year student, or even when I was a student, and I think about all the people who would have days off. I even think about myself when I was training as well. People who would have days off, people who would have cheat meals, or that was a very, very sarcastic cheat meals, but that's a conversation for another day. And just live a lifestyle where they were still having fun. And I remember I used to think that those people wouldn't go anywhere. But the thing is, they had probably figured life out before I even have. So I commend all of those different people who managed to have that sort of balance, because to me, I guess my ego, the type of person I was at the time, balance to me was, I thought it was an excuse for people to be lazy. Just going to say it for reals. That's kind of how I felt right now. But obviously, as you can see, I am the one laughing at myself for not actually giving myself that space, but also giving myself that grace to actually just, be able to decompress and be myself and be with myself, and be okay with that. So that's what I want to talk about today. I really do want to talk about how blessed I am, and absolutely blessed. But these are things that I don't think we're able to recognize until we see it. So until we actually give ourselves that space. So sometimes when we're working, a lot of the time, it's just head down, ass up, and you're going for it. But while you're doing that, you kind of forget everything that's going on around you. So yeah, like I said, I never really realized this until I take a break. And I guess rest it's never been one of those things that has been foreign to a lot of people. If you think about people from religious practices, like we definitely have a Sabbath. The Sabbath is basically saying, one of the 10 commandments is, you have to honor the Sabbath and have a proper rest, because the Creator, well, it depends on how you think about creation of the world or your creation narratives. One of them, one of the days was to rest. It was a full day of rest. And I think where I wanted to go with this is thinking about how we interpret rest. So that's the first one, but also what is the purpose of this rest? So I think the first one that people think about is they see the rest day. So I think if you've come from that grind mentality, you see the rest day as recuperation to be able to grind again. What I've been trying to think about is having that rest day to look forward to. And that's actually going to be the hardest day of the week, because I can work. Mans can work. I can go, and it's actually hard to get me to switch off. So I find the rest day is a really good day for me to work on myself internally. So instead of working hard, instead of resting to work hard, I work hard knowing that I'm going to have that rest day. It's a slight change in how we think about things, but I think what that does is it gives us kind of a break from this whole consumerism, kind of capitalistic way of thinking, where everything that we do needs to be to produce some sort of output. It's kind of, this is prioritizing who we are and what it is that we do first and foremost for our own values, before contributing, I guess, to this wider economy of how things are going in the world, I guess. So yeah. If I think about the Sabbath, and if I think about the 10 Commandments, and if I think about the story that my mum used to always tell me, so she's from a beautiful island, well, we're from a beautiful island called Mauke in the Cook Islands. It is one of the 15 islands of the Cook Islands, probably the most beautiful. Not going to lie, no cap, go check it out. And basically what would happen was that the Sabbath was so, you had to observe the Sabbath so harsh that it was proper rest. Nothing going on, and what kind of made me realize this is that the rest is not only for the humans, but the rest was also for the animals as well. So they would feed them extra hard on the Saturday, because they would have to fast on the Sunday. So the pigs, they would have to fast on the Sunday because no one could go feed them, because that's considered labor. So I know for all of you, there's probably like, that's inhumane, blah, 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 but that's how they did things. And because if you're talking about like energy balance and all that sort of stuff, they kind of upped it on the Saturday and upped it on the Monday. Their overall intake over the week was probably okay. And I think they probably needed that rest as well, just stop thinking about themselves as some sort of output in the future, and then them actually starting to consider, what they are, what their purpose is on this world as well, So there's some good stuff there. So the rest itself, also, how good that we've gone 15 minutes in and I haven't played a song. So I was going to be playing some music. It didn't quite come through in time. There's just a few things that we had to do in terms of technicalities. It didn't quite come through, but it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice not having, that song, because what I would do is that I'd have that song there and I would kind of be waiting for it. So I know that if I started to have a break, that's when I'd play the song, and I just kind of like use that to recoup my thoughts. but I'm kind of not being able to hide behind anything. In this episode, because I don't have that song, I just have to go straight in and talk about everything. So it's been nice. It's been nice. It's been confronting, but it's also been nice. I don't have that thing to hide behind anymore. It's just like having my headphones and all that sort of stuff as well. Cool. So I think when we talk about taking rest and when we talk about being grateful for a whole bunch of different things, I think our gratitude changes a little bit if we actually start to take that rest. I know that when you're in the hustle bustle kind of environment, your gratitude is towards things that are helping you continue, that sort of drive. And you're grateful for all the different things that are allowing you to continue pushing or continue persevering in that world of just get. Now, the problem with the world of get is that you will never get to where you're trying to go. You set so many different goals for yourself and all that sort of stuff, but if it's to get more and then you will be happy, or to get more and then this will give you the thing that will then allow you to feel some sort of happiness, it is very fleeting. It'll come and go. And when you do get there, you find the next best thing that's going to make you happy. And I've talked about this a bajillion times, but the thing is, I still fall into that trap. I finally got a job where I'm getting paid, and I thought that if I made a certain amount of money, that would mean that I wouldn't have these issues anymore. But as they say, more money, more problems. And I don't really have that many problems, but a lot of the different things that I thought would finally make me feel like I can be okay, I've got now. And I still haven't, it didn't just miraculously turn me into this person who was going to be okay all the time. I still have things to work on. And when we're grateful only for the things that help advance you into those different spaces, we forget about the things that are actually, we should be grateful for all the time, because they just allow us to be. But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is, I don't think we can necessarily just be if we're always rolling forward, or like just always in this huge dust wheel, or huge, what are those things called? They're called, like, the little, it's like a desert, and then there's that thing that just rolls past, and it's like, anyway, I don't know what that thing's called. It'll come to me. Anyway, that thing that rolls along and it just collects a lot of dust. An avalanche maybe, or a snowball that goes down and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. When that's all your sole focused, all you're focusing on is that trajectory that you're on. You don't actually look about you don't look at where you've come from. You also don't look at all the different opportunities that you could be missing because you're so focused on where it is that you need to be. Taking that rest, I think, allows a lot of things to set into place. Now, this is where I like to talk about stillness, and this is where I like to talk about how ideas are properly formed. Then I'll give a couple of examples, and then I'm just going to do a couple of shout-outs for people who had shout-outs for people. And it's a shorter list this week, but that's just because a lot of them were double-ups on people being grateful for me, and I can't be... I find that weird that you are grateful for me, for being able to come on and talk about all these different ideas, but at the same time, you're the reason I do this, so I'm extremely grateful for every single listener who does listen, every single person who shares anything that I do, but also just people who find that they can be okay, or that they can, through my struggle, they find relevance to their lives, and then they try to bring it all together. And make sure that we can go forward. So I appreciate you all so much. But anyway, so if I think about stillness, and if I think about something that I've spoken about before, but this is something I really try to get my head around, because if you think about clarity in ideas, or if you think about clarity in anything that you do in your life, it can never be clear if it's foggy. And if you think about a river, or if you think about something with quite shallow water, and if you keep throwing pebbles into that one area, it's either going to create a lot of ripples so that it distorts what you're looking at underneath it, but also if it's hitting something underneath it, there might be sediment and stuff that comes up. So if you just keep hammering that one area, you're never really going to get stillness, and because you never get that stillness, you're never actually going to get clarity of what it is that's going on underneath it. So that's what I like to think about with my thoughts and with my different ideas. that come across. So because we're always on the go, and because we live this lifestyle, and because we actually kind of, if really the world kind of idealizes this type of way of living, because we're always living in that mindset, or because we're always actually living that lifestyle, we never actually get proper clarity. And because we never get proper clarity, we lose a lot of who we are. We lose a lot of what it is that we do in terms of our values, through this just like head down, ass up mentality. So there's a couple of problems with that. The first one is that we don't actually get baseline measures to ascertain whether a difference has occurred or not. So what I mean by that is, if you never stop to see where you are and assess where it is that you have come from, you can't see the trajectory of where it is that you're going. So because you've been so hard, going so damn hard, like going ham in one direction, and if you don't look to where you have come from, you could have been putting in a whole bunch of effort, but maybe that effort was in the wrong direction. And because it was in the wrong direction, your efficiency has actually gone down. So what I'm trying to say is, it's those moments of stopping and reflecting on where you've come from that actually help you to kind of gauge whether or not you're going forward. If you're not going forward, what is it that you can do? Like, what is it along the way that kind of didn't go to plan that's going to help you get to that next step? Or if things are going really, really well, that moment of clarity or that moment of stillness is actually going to help you look at what it is that is going well. We don't always have to reflect just to see what's going wrong and what are things that we can work on. We can reflect on the things that are going well as well, because then now that's part of our toolbox for when we go forward. So thinking about the times that we do when we have rest, and I think the reason why I'm so big on having rest now is because of two things. Firstly, doing my PhD, but also just thinking about my PhD from the exercise perspective, and that it is during rest that a lot of the recovery actually starts to happen. So if you work out all the time, you've heard of overtraining, you've heard of all those different things, but working out is a stressor. Any stress is a stressor, and if you are stressed, your body is your body goes into a state where it tries to break everything down so that it makes nutrients available for the rest of the body to use. So if you think about back in the day when we needed those fast fuel sources, it was to get yourself out of trouble. It was so you weren't going to get eaten by a lion and all those sorts of things. So you're in a stressed out state, and because you're stressed, your body is catabolic and it's breaking everything down. For you to properly recover and for you to actually benefit from the different activities that you have been doing or the food that you're putting into your body, you need to be in a state that promotes anabolism. So I know that sounds like you're trying to eat someone, but anabolism is like the opposite of catabolic. So catabolic is breaking it down, and anabolic is building it back up. So you want to get into that sort of thing. And that's not going to happen until you're in a state where your body doesn't feel like it's stressing. And a lot of that does come from recovery, and that's why you have rest days. And on those rest days, you want to actually properly be resting. If you think about the same thing for similar to what I was talking about before with my PhD, you get so caught up in what you're working on at that time that you lose the bigger picture. So if you have a huge concept, especially for a thing like a PhD where you're writing 60 to 100,000 words, it's so easy to just get caught up in the ideas that you're writing, and then you forget about how is it that all of these pieces are going to come together in the end. So you have one chapter at one end that you haven't written since like 2 years ago, then you have one chapter towards the end which you've just been writing on, then you have a chapter in the middle which all have been written at different times with different yous at that time. So different you meaning how you thought about the world at that time. Like we change, we evolve over time. So when you go back and see, and you also gain different skills in that time, so you lose the entire picture because you're so where you are in that moment. This is a prime example of why reflection actually helps you to see the bigger picture, because you need to step back from it. And there have been plenty of times where I've done a piece of writing, I thought it was the absolute shit. Like I was like, if this is not the best thing I've ever written, then I quit. And then I come back to it maybe like after a bit of a break from it, because all I've done is looked at it over and over and over, and it makes sense in my head. So you can either ask someone else for help, which, that's also gut-wrenching. But anyway, you can either do that, or you can just go take a break from it and then come back to it. And then you realize, what the hell was going on? Where was my head at? And then you start to see, oh man, it's because that was all I was focusing on at that time, and I actually didn't give it the proper appraisal that it needed, because all I was doing was thinking that this was the way to go, and I didn't allow any other thoughts to come in. So that's just something to think about there. And I guess one of the other things, so after my PhD, now that I'm a researcher and properly researching, I can't talk about the project specifically just yet, but when I do, you're gonna love it. But anyway, we're working with so much data and so many different variables, and we kind of, I guess me and my research team, we have a biased perspective. Or no, we don't have a biased perspective, but we only know what we know. And because we've been looking at the variables the way that we have been looking at them, it's been difficult to kind of consider any other way, because we've gone so hard in this direction that we don't know. We don't know. It's just that we aren't considering other things. We hadn't been considering other things until we took a step back from it and we moved on to something else, because we couldn't see where we were going to go forward anymore, because we kind of felt like we had been the same horse for a very, very long time. We went away for a little bit, and then we came back, and when we came back, all of these things started to unravel themselves. And it's not that we went away and got smarter, it was just that we went away and we allowed kind of that block or that wall that we had in our head to break down. We allowed another perspective or another side of our head, or maybe something that we had read, to come in and influence the way that we were thinking in that time. Until you actually stop to take that rest, until you actually stop to recover and try to get that clarity, the world that you live in is the only world that you live in. So yeah, that's that as well. And then so I've already talked about training. And then another one is just, if I think about proper rest, and if I think about how I want to go forward and start doing proper rest, instead of taking time away, or instead of going home and just binging Netflix, what I want to do is do rest that doesn't sound like rest, but it's rest where I'm kind of disengaged from this world of consumerism. So I'm not going onto my phone all the time and looking at different things, because what that does is it allows those senses of comparisons to come in, because I'm going to look at what other people have. It's going to make me want to go buy something so that I can have something else, all that sort of stuff. But also, like, watching Netflix, all that sort of stuff, all of that is built on you being sucked into something else. All of that is built on you being distracted from your attention. So what I'm trying to say is, my proper rest is actually being where I am in that moment. And the reason why this is coming up now, and I have so many reasons for so many different things, is that I was walking sorry, that was yuck. I was walking past I was just walking past the brunch place the other day, and there's a group of 4, and maybe one of them's on their phone, or maybe 2 of them are on their phone, and maybe they had discussed, I don't want to judge too much in that moment, but maybe they had discussed that this is what they were going to do. They said that they were going to talk about this, and maybe like, I'm just going to go on my phone right now. But as soon as you go on your phone, that takes you out of the moment. Then it means that you have a latency period to actually get you back into that moment, if you did want to be in that moment. Now, I remember when I was a kid, and we didn't have phones, and when we were playing with our friends, and that was all that we did, and we were so good at doing that and having the best time ever, and no one was distracted. And then when we'd come to dinner, we were all at dinner, and we didn't have our phones, and everyone was talking, and we were being there with each other. So if I'm properly resting, I want to be resting in the moment that I'm in. So where is it that we put our attention? Are we concentrating on where it is that we are in that moment? And because we're not thinking about where it is that we should be, we're actually properly resting. A lot of people have the weekend and they talk about, it's okay, I had some days off. But where was their mind? Was their mind on the work that they should have been doing, or that they could have been doing to try to get up? Or was their mind actually where they were in that moment? Or were they thinking about, Monday, I've got to do all these different things? So that's what I've been trying to think about in terms of rest and actually being where I am. And look at that. It brings pretty much our entire podcast all together. So this is the beginning of the end. Nah, just kidding. But I know a lot of you probably wish that was happening because of my stupid ass rambles. But yeah, where I want to go with the rest of this is just, talking about my rest and talking about what it is that you can do what are some types of things that you can do to actually help yourself get that clarity? So the first thing that I want to do is just shout out to the different people who wrote in, and they were talking about the things that they were grateful for. Now, there wasn't many, like I said, because they kind of all were the same things over and over and over again. But what I found, which was quite nice from different people when they wrote into me, was that they're like, oh, this is so nice that you've given me this opportunity. Now, I didn't give you any opportunity, but what I did was I allowed you that time to kind of sit with your thoughts and try to put that out there. So I think we can do that a little bit more frequently. But the types of people who wrote in, so everyone else who wrote in and said they're grateful for me for all that I do. I don't really do much, but I appreciate you for that sentiment. But what we have is Cherish here. So I put this one in because I wanted to talk on it for a little bit, but she's grateful to me. This is me, as in Troy, for teaching me that exercise can be fun and that any movement is good. Now, that's really, really important, because if we think about movement, or if you think about movement as like almost the key to every single thing in this world, that breaks down the stigma of what it is that you are capable of, and it's just doing what it is you're capable of without having to compare yourself to what other people are capable of. When you do move as well, I've always considered this as like the most pure form of meditation, because you're thinking about what it is your body is doing in that moment. So you can get lost. I know you can get lost because you're not thinking too much at all, but you do have to pay some sort of consciousness to how your body's moving. What does it feel like when it's in space? When you start to move faster, can you feel the air go faster over you? When you use different muscles, and when you start to think about different body parts and how they're aligning when you're moving, do you feel a difference and all those sorts of things? And that's mindfulness in practice right there, because you're being in the moment, but you're also taking in what your different senses are feeling. So I really appreciate that. And obviously, I love movement so much, and I love getting people moving more. So if people can, just see any opportunity to do movement, then that's where it's at. Oh, and speaking of this, if you are in Dunedin, Monday and Wednesday, they have Dance Fit with the Pacific Trust Otago. So that was one of the groups that I run my PhD with, and it's really, really fun. So if you want to come along, or flick me a message and I will take you. Ola says, love to the school kids who have had to relearn how to learn because of a COVID impacted world. And that's 100% true. This is the same thing where, because if we only focus on what it is that we do know, we don't see any other alternative. But COVID was almost like the biggest reset, where people had to take rest. And from that taking rest, people had to start thinking of new solutions to actually achieve the same outcomes. And like, I can only imagine how much that impacted a lot of people. I was extremely fortunate for myself that I was only writing my PhD at the time, and I had all my data collected. So it didn't actually impact me heavily. If anything, it actually gave me a really good chance to write a lot of my PhD. But to all the different people who had to start going into online mediums, people at school as well. Like school, I swear, school was one of the coolest things, just for the social aspect. Like, I can't tell you for the life of me what I learned in different classes, but I can tell you the funny things that happened, and what people would say in different classes. But also, if I was looking forward to seeing a different group of friends, or like, school was so fun. And to have had that taken away from a lot of people, that kind of takes away that element of wanting to be better, because you can show off to some people. And not that it's what it's about, but sometimes it is. Maybe. Who knows? Anyway, yeah, so thank you, Ola, for that. Izzy says, appreciate trees and remember to give them hugs. Now, I think if you say that to someone, and they're someone who's not super woke and just understand that this world is, like, it's so awe-inspiring. A lot of the times when I start to feel really, really down on myself, and I am, I do get this quite a bit, and especially recently, I just look around and, like, firstly, I'm thankful for my body, and I'm just like so in awe of what the body can do without me even telling it to do it. It just does things. Like, as I'm talking, somehow I'm making words that you can understand. While I'm talking, I'm not even thinking that I'm taking in oxygen. It's going down to my lungs. It's exchanging into my blood, which then goes around to the rest of my tissues to keep me going. And then it takes all the blood comes back with all of the cells that don't have any oxygen, and it reoxygenates, and then it goes back around the body. I'm not even thinking about all that sort of stuff, but it's doing it. It's just like the damn trees that we look at, and we try to colonize our damn plants and put. No, I'm not saying that, but plants that we put into our office because we want it to look cool, and we don't even look after them. But what they managed to do with the little light that we give them, or with the little, space for environment that they just do everything that they can, and provide so much for us. And the thing is, they're part of that circle of life. They provide us the oxygen for us to do our thing, and a lot of our thing is actually a lot worse for what they could give to us. So, just extremely grateful for them. They're almost like dogs, except, how dogs, you could be the worst person in the world, but dogs just so forgiving. But yeah, I do reckon that's really, really important to, appreciate them. And if you do give them a hug, maybe just, you don't have to literally give them a hug if you want as well, but just sit with them for a little bit, take your headphones off and just listen to them and just be with them, and just realize that this is the ultimate awe-inspiring piece of God's gift that is right there and doing so much for you, and all you do is walk past it and maybe pee on it sometimes. So, no, I truly do appreciate that, and it's something that I've been trying to get into more. So with my rest, this is what I'm trying to say, is I'm trying to get out into nature more, so I'll just go for walks, and in those walks, I'm really trying to take my headphones off so that I can actually listen to everything that's going on around me, and just think, man, like each of these trees had to start from somewhere small, and we kind of see them where they are now, like, oh, that's a huge ass tree, but there's a lot of whakapapa that goes into behind those trees and how they're growing. So yeah, absolutely. And Helena, oh, sorry. At least I can cough now without breaking my ribs every single time. So short rib update, they're coming along just nicely. Cool, and we're not going to be on the menu of Lone Star. But yeah, she says, shout out to Asher Derbyshire, sorry if I said your name wrong, brother, and the ITHH coaches for getting us through a 14-week fight camp. And I've been keeping up with that, and I know a lot of you come out of Wellington Boxing, I think, where my boy Tonga was coaching, and if you haven't listened to that episode, listen to that one for sure. But basically, they took a whole bunch of people, and I think a lot of it is for charity, and they're just going to get these people to fight. And they've been training a lot of these people, and a lot of these people haven't fought before, so they've been trying to get them, just in every aspect of health better, as well as being able to fight. So learn a brand new skill at the same time. So I take my hat off. I applaud anyone who can go do that, and I applaud anyone who is trying to get good. It doesn't matter what the fuck you're trying to get good at. If you're trying to get good at something, you are giving the resources that a lot of people, or that you are just given, and you're using it in a way that you should be, because it's like, I know sometimes people are happy with where they are and they're content with where they are, but I think there's nothing cooler than trying to get good at something. And it doesn't matter what it is you're trying to get good at, but just remember, we were given so many different cool things. And I think if we try to get good at a lot of things, or if we try to get good at something, we're using a lot of the resources that we have been given without us even trying to work for it. So appreciate everyone for writing in. That was 40 minutes of a whole bunch of I don't even know what happened. But no, I think we got through a lot. I will be talking a little bit more about being in awe and just gratitude in general, as well as a few more lighter episodes and a few more fun episodes. Remember, if you did like this, please review it on the iTunes app. Please give it a 5-star rating. Please share it with someone as well. And if you do listen, please, love you all, and I appreciate everything that you do for us. And next week we'll have some music back up in the building, but appreciate you all. Love you all. What did I talk about today? Absolutely unsure, but it is good to be here, and thank you.